All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a skill that's absolutely critical for anyone in a technical field, but for some reason, it's rarely ever taught. We're talking about how to efficiently read a research paper.
So let me just ask you, how many unread papers are sitting on your to-do list right now? Seriously, if you're a student, a researcher, or just curious, you're probably facing this constant flood of new publications. And man, it can feel overwhelming. That digital pile of PDFs just keeps growing, doesn't it?
You know, this feeling is pretty much universal. This quote from computer scientist S. Keshav just nails it, that feeling of spinning your wheels and getting nowhere. But what if there was a structured method, a system, to turn all that frustration into focused understanding? Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll talk a little more about that feeling of drowning in research. Then, I'm going to introduce you to a powerful lifeline, the three-pass approach. We'll break down each pass step by step, and then finally, we'll see how you can actually use this technique to master an entire field of study without getting completely lost. So let's get right into the method itself. It's called the three-pass approach. And, the core idea is brilliantly simple. Stop trying to read a paper from start to finish on your first try. It's wildly inefficient. Instead, this method breaks the process into three separate passes, and each one has a very specific goal. The best way to think about it is like you're building a house. The first pass, that's your foundation and the frame. The second pass, well, now you're putting up the walls and the roof. And that third pass, that's all the detailed interior work. Each layer builds directly on the last one. All right, let's start with pass one, the bird's eye view. I want you to think of this as a high-speed flyover. Your goal here is just to survey the landscape, Get the lay of the land without getting bogged down in every little detail on the ground. The key word here is triage. You're making a quick but critical decision. Is this paper actually worth my time? This first pass acts as a filter, and it's there to protect your most valuable resource, your attention. And here's the best part. This is what makes it so powerful. This entire first pass, this critical first look, should take you 5, maybe 10 minutes. That's it. It's such a tiny investment of time for a potentially huge return. So how do you do it in 10 minutes? Well, you follow 4 very specific steps. And notice you're not reading the body of the paper at all. You're just looking at its skeleton. The title and abstract for the main idea, the headings for the structure, the conclusion for the payoff, and a quick glance at the references to see where it fits in the academic conversation. After just those 10 minutes, believe it or not, you should be able to answer these 5 critical questions, the 5 C's. What kind of paper is it? Does it relate to other work you already know? Do the basic assumptions even seem valid? And is it well written? Just answering these is often enough to know if you should keep going or if you should just file it away for another day. Okay, so let's say the paper passed that first test. It seems relevant. It seems interesting. Now we move on to the second pass. This is where you actually start to read for content, but you do it with a very specific strategy in mind. The objective here is to really grasp the main thrust of the paper, what the authors are trying to argue and the evidence they're using to back it up. You're reading for comprehension, but, and this is important, you are still intentionally skipping the really dense, detailed stuff, like the complex mathematical proofs. Now, this pass is obviously more involved. You should probably budget up to an hour for this deeper dive. And honestly, for most papers that are relevant but not absolutely core to your own research, this is probably as deep as you'll ever need to go. In this second pass, you're not just reading the text, you're actually interrogating the visuals. Pay really close attention to the graphs and figures, because a good graph tells a whole story. Are the axes properly labeled? Are there error bars? I'm telling you, these little details are often the biggest clues that separate sloppy work from truly excellent research. And, at the same time, you're building your future reading list by marking any key references that you see. So, at the end of this pass, there's a really solid test for your understanding, and it's this. Could you explain the paper's core message confidently to a colleague? If the answer is yes, then you've got it. And for a lot of papers, that's all the detail you're ever going to need. Okay. So now we get to the third and most intensive pass. This is reserved for papers that are absolutely central to what you're working on. This is where you really go from being just a reader to being a peer reviewer. The goal now isn't just to understand what the authors did. It's to deconstruct how they did it and why they did it.
You're looking to critically evaluate every single piece of the work.
To get to this level of understanding, you have to adopt a whole new mindset. You have to try and virtually re-implement the paper. In your head, try to recreate their work from the ground up, because it's in that gap, the gap between your reconstruction and what they actually did, that's where you'll find the paper's true innovations, and sometimes its hidden flaws. See, this pass is all about uncovering what the paper isn't saying. What corner cases did the authors maybe ignore? What assumptions did they make without ever explicitly stating them? Developing this kind of critical eye is an absolutely essential skill for any serious researcher. After this final pass, which, for a beginner, could take several hours, you're going to know this paper as well as its author does. You'll be able to see its strengths, its weaknesses, and exactly where it fits in the broader landscape of the entire field. So, okay, this works great for a single paper. But how does it scale? How do you apply this to an entire field? Let's look at how this method can transform one of the most daunting tasks there is, the literature survey. The 3-pass approach gives you this incredibly powerful framework. You start by using those quick first passes to get a map of the territory. Then you follow the citations like breadcrumbs to find the key papers and the big-name researchers. And finally, use a mix of first and second passes on work from the top conferences to build out your comprehensive understanding. It turns it into a systematic exploration, not just a random, chaotic walk. So what's the big takeaway here? Ultimately, this method transforms reading from this chaotic, frustrating chore into a strategic and efficient process. You're back in control. You get to decide exactly how deep you need to go on any given paper, which means you'll never drown in the details again. So really, this structured approach doesn't just make you a faster reader, it actually trains you to become a sharper, more critical thinker. And the only question left is, now that you have this tool, in the next paper you read, what hidden assumptions are you going to uncover?